Alright, so for day 6, we're going to be taking a look at Darkside Blues. Which, by the way, there is a short song from Ozzy Osbourne with that name. So this one was based after a manga that was written by Hideyuki Kikuchi, who, by the way, actually made Vampire Hunter D, one of my all-time favorites. So knowing that, I was really curious about checking this one out. So as always, let's talk about the story. So this one takes place many years into the future, where a company called the Persona Century Corporation owns like most of the world, and all the parts that they own are now under very strict laws. I guess you can say this is what happens when all the Persona fans want to take over the world and start arguing about who the best waifu is. Okay, just kidding, but anyways, let's continue along. So one of the areas that is not owned by them happens to be the dark side of Tokyo, also known as Kabuki Town. So this town looks like something out of a post-apocalyptic world that is very anarchy, and one of the main groups is called Messiah, and the leader of it happens to be Mai. So she is pretty much the leader of the resistance along with a couple other members, and one of many happens to be Celia. So it turns out that there was actually a terrorist attack happening within the area that the Persona company owns. But all the members died except for one, and the one that survives happens to be Tetsuya. But he does manage to escape to Kabuki Town. So what ends up happening is that the vice president of the company ends up going there and makes an announcement that there is a bounty on Tetsuya. And whoever catches him, dead or alive, will get a shit ton of money and will also get a high-ranking position at the company. And yeah, you can probably take a guess what happens here. So eventually, Mai ends up finding Tetsuya somewhere, but she happens to get into a fight with another ghoulish-looking assassin-type character. And she happens to take him in to Celia, who happens to be very good at being a doctor. So pretty much after that, they want to try and fight back and try and take out the vice president. Now this may all sound like a pretty simple story, which it kinda is for the most part, but of course you gotta have one thing that's kinda all mystical all of a sudden. So there happens to be this one character who teleports to a different dimension somehow, and he happens to be riding on a horse and carriage wearing all black, and his name is Darkside. So he has this like really weird power called renewal, where for certain characters he can actually make them overcome some of their fears that they may have had. And if they don't overcome them with his power, then they're pretty much dead. Well, that's the easiest way I can explain that, but yeah, that pretty much sums up the basics of what you need to know. Of course, I'll talk more about it near the end of this video, so now let's get moving on and start talking about the animation. And I gotta say, the animation in this one is actually really good. Not only does it flow nicely, but also the art direction is pretty great, and there's a lot of really nice details in here. I really love all the backgrounds, and all like the character designs are really nice. And the one thing that I really do like about the settings in this one is that it has like a really good mixture of like future, but also like old looking. It's very cool looking. There's a lot of very cool gothic settings in here that are mixed in with the future stuff. Also, the action scenes in this one are really well done too for what they are, so yeah, not a whole lot of complaints I have with this one, but I really do like the way it looks, and if you're a fan of most like 90s anime styles, I think this is one you would like visually. And as for this one's music, the music is pretty good. I do like it. It does have some pretty cool songs that are very fitting, but nothing like crazy memorable though, but I did like it for what it was. Like, I found all of them really fit the very dark and bleak atmosphere. Also, there's a song that the musician character ends up playing in one scene, and if you watch this one in Japanese, he actually sings the song in English still. But yeah, overall, I do think that the soundtrack is at the very least very well done. So now, as for this one's voice acting, so what I ended up doing was that I watched it entirely in Japanese and then just watched like a couple parts here and there in English just to hear what it sounded like, and I can tell you that just stick with this one for Japanese. The voice acting in English is just fucking terrible. So firstly, there's only 2 roles in here that I was familiar with. So Rachel Lillis ends up playing a very minor character in here, and as much as I do like her voice talents, in here there's really not much to say because she just plays like a minor role, so yeah, there's not much I can say about that. And the other one that I was familiar with was Scott Cargill. So he happened to play one of the main bad guys within Agent Aika, and he sucked in that anime, and he sucks again here too. But then again, Agent Aika's voice acting just sucked complete dicks. But as for this one as a whole though, I mean, it's not as bad as Agent Aika's voice acting in English, but it's not much better though. Like, most of the roles in here are just really bland and boring sounding, like they didn't care. And most of the voices don't even fit the character, so clearly, the voice direction on this one is just a complete mess. Even if you wanted to watch it in case it was like so bad it's good, and this is coming from someone that does like a lot of cheesy ass voice acting, it wasn't even good enough to be that. So now, as my overall thoughts on Darkside Blues is that I found this one to be kind of enjoyable. So I thought the premise was interesting. I really do like the world that they have going on here. And the characters, well, they were decent, they were alright, but I felt like they could have been done a little bit better, but for the most part, I don't think any of them were, like, bad. Although I will say, I did like the moment between Celia and Tetsuya together. I thought that was actually, like, the best part of characterization within here. But as much as I did enjoy this one though, I will say there is a couple things that could have been a lot better. For, like I said, the characters I felt like could have been had a little bit more backstory going on. And I did found that some of the transitions between certain scenes though did felt a little bit misjointed at times. Also, I found that the ending climax was just kind of okay for what it was. It was more of like an open-ended type deal, which I don't mind. But I was really hoping for something to be kind of more epic given like the concept of what's going on here and some of the shit that this company did. But other than these few things though, I did found it to be pretty enjoyable, but of course, it is a little hard to recommend this one for, like I said, it can be a little bit misjointed, and also I do find that the pacing in this one is kind of slow, which I know can bother a lot of people. It didn't bother me for this one personally, but it is something to be aware of though. But I will say though that out of all the ones that I've been taking a look at this year, this is one of the better ones that I've looked at so far. And I would say that I liked it rather well, but as much as I like it though, it's definitely no Vampire Hunter D, so if you're watching this expecting it to be like that because it's from the same creator of the books, well, yeah, it's not even close to being that good. But without comparing it to anything else though, I thought it was pretty solid. Yeah, it's a little bit flawed here and there, but still enjoyable enough.